Hi everyone, this is Dr. Essie Stacey, helping you to be well. Hi everyone, welcome to Dr. Essie's Kitchen and Ketchup. What a strange title, what a strange subject for Doc Essie's Kitchen. But I'm just struck by how the simple things in our kitchen are what can harm us, but also what can heal us. And ketchup is one of those things. And the ketchup that we buy from the shops is kind of a twisted version of the righteous real, if you like. It's a twisted version of something that can really heal us or help us to be in health, put it that way. It's not going to heal you if you eat it on its own. But anyway, so as I'm waiting for you all to log in and type, say hello on the comment box. So let me just play the intro for you. So what have I got in the fridge that I want to show you? So we have got, this is what I want to show you in my fridge today. Can you see it? It's ketchup. It's fermented ketchup. Let me take it out and show you that. I'll take the lid off and you can have a look. So you can see the way it's sort of bubbled up like that, and then let's see. I know, can't really see very much from that aspect. I'll give it a taste. Very nice. And that's about a week old. It's becoming a little bit tart, but it's very nice. Very nice indeed. And very good. Great. So that's what we're going to be making. Very, very simple, but I will be making a detour in the middle because I wanted to talk about fluoride, and you'll see how I go from ketchup to fluoride as we're going along. So right, let's go straight into the first part of how to make ketchup. Here goes. So I'm going to show you how to make that today, and it's so simple. Tomatoes, onion, kombucha, and tamarind. So I was wondering, I had some tamarind that I bought ages ago in the cupboard, and I was wondering what to do with it, and I realized that actually that kind of a spice that you make sauces with. So I'm used to making these tomato sauces, so I made some and it tastes like ketchup. So it's fermented ketchup, and of course some powders if you need it, but you can just do it with that. A bit of salt maybe. I've got some ras el hanout, which is a Moroccan like 12 spices also in there, so a mixed spice would do it as well. So we're gonna just this bit's easy. You fry the onions with the tomatoes, and what I'm going to do is just caramelize the onions with the kombucha first. Now the tamarind, it's like a hard, and if I can show you that a bit closer, give you a bit of a close up. That's what tamarind looks like. You can see the nuts in there, the seed. And it's a sort of a sweet tart taste. But you need to soak that to get all of the gooey stuff out. And it's the gooey stuff that you're going to use. So we'll do that. So I've got about that much. I'm going to add some hot water to it. So probably a bit too much hot water. Take a bit out and let it soak, because then all of that's going to, you'll get some of the black gooey stuff off of that. So I'll just leave that to soak for a little bit. So there's the onion in. I'm going to change it up a bit, actually. I'm going to use some palm oil as well to show you how to incorporate that into your life. So there's the onions, and then I'm just going to bung the tomatoes in without much ado. There you go. I'll turn that down a little bit and just leave it to do slowly. So we've got the tamarind. It's broken up a little bit now. So I can just use the juices from that. If I strain it, I can use the juices from that. And here's the tomatoes and the onion. Of course, I'm going to whiz them all up at the end, so I'm not too concerned that it's, you know, they're big lumps. So that's good. And I'm going to add some kombucha to that. So I'm just going to pour that tamarind in there. Just hoping there are no big lumps of seed going in. Right, so I've stopped at the tamarind bit on purpose because that's when I want to make this detour. So hopefully it's all clear so far. Do type your questions as always into the comment box if you have any questions there. And I'm hoping that more people are going to be able to log in. I'm hoping, I know it seems that a couple of people are having difficulties, but some of you are on, so welcome to those that you managed to get on here. So anyway, what I want to do is to whiz over to the iPad view and just to talk about tamarind, because I had tamarind sitting in my cupboard for a while and didn't know what to do with it. And then I realized that tamarind is native to places like Nigeria, which is where I'm from, and Asia. And I didn't know what to do with it. So I looked up and I realized that also that it's in ketchup. But I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because it is pretty amazing. So let me just set this up. So it's in Asia and stuff. It's used in jams and chutneys and foods, just general cooking with tomatoes, etc. And it's has for those that have not tasted it, has a sort of a sweet, tart taste to it. And you can have it raw and cooked. You can eat the seeds as well. Packed with nutrients, vitamins, B vitamins, folate, vitamin K, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A, minerals, calcium, copper, phosphorus, iron, magnesium, potassium, zinc, selenium, and antioxidant molecules. So it's a powerhouse, I would say. Now, if you remember, those of you that were on the figs webinar, you'll remember this compound, lupiol. And lupiol, tamarind has lupiol in it as well. And lupiol, a reminder, same slide as the fig one, anti-inflammatory, anti-arthritic, anti-cancer, anti-malaria. So what's not to love? A pretty good substance that a lot of us don't know anything about, and yet we can buy really pretty easily. What are the benefits? There are benefits for using almost, well, all parts, the leaves, the bark, roots, the seeds and the pulp. I'm using the pulp today, but all parts are useful. The bark has been said to be useful for asthma, amenorrhea is when you don't have periods, fevers, digestion and skin. The leaf, good for throat infection, bone and joint, cough, fever, intestinal worms, conjunctivitis. The seeds seem to be really where a lot of the action is. They contain pectin, oleic acids, which is the same as olive oil, other anti-inflammatory antioxidants used for diarrhea, arthritis, diabetes, cancers, you name it. It seems to, tamarind is just amazing, just seems to be useful for all of these. So the pulp, which is what I'm using, is said to be a mild laxative and useful in scurvy, abdominal pain, atherosclerosis. So think heart disease, think blood pressure, strokes, blood pressure, strokes. It improves the antioxidant status. So the antioxidants, remember the oxidants are those free radicals which cause inflammation, and stuff that dampens down the free radicals like glutathione. The tamarind is going to improve all of that, improve your ability to dampen down inflammation. It's antimicrobial. It's useful against staphylococcus, which gives us horrible skin infections, listeria from air conditioning units, pseudomonas, get pneumonias, salmonella, we know that, E. coli, we know that, bacillus subtilis. Bacillus subtilis is an interesting one because in some circumstances it's good. It's in peak biotic and megaspore biotic, the spore biotics that I particularly love. And it's one of the things that's responsible for making the bugs that's responsible for making K2 in the gut. So why is it good if tamarind helps to kill that off? It's a really good point for me to make here, in that the bugs that are in our gut should be in our gut. The good ones, they should be in our gut and not in the rest of our body. Our blood vessels, our blood should be sterile. There should be no microbes growing in there. And how do they get in there when they're not supposed to be? Then that is because of leaky gut, because of gut dysbiosis, the holes in the mucosal lining, the lining of the gut. And those holes let bugs through. So this is why on my Diet to Detox, there's a whole module on Diet to Detox now on the website. On Diet to Detox, on the first phase, I often don't introduce probiotics or probiotic foods if the person is very unwell. And that's because some of those microbes can end up in the body and make the person really unwell. And sometimes, you might have a friend who said, if I take probiotics, I'm really, really unwell. Sometimes that can be because of SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth, which is where you've got the microbes in the upper gut where they shouldn't be. But sometimes that can be because the microbes, the so-called good microbes, actually end up inside your body. So that, just wanted to make that point there. The other thing about tamarind is that it improves liver function and cholesterol metabolism. So what we're seeing is a lot more liver disease than we did before. When I was a junior doctor in my early 20s, which is a quarter of a century ago, the only type, I worked on a liver firm, and the only types of liver disease we saw was alcoholic liver disease. Whereas now I'd never heard of non-alcoholic liver disease other than in people with rare genetic problems. Whereas now we're getting more and more, you're seeing more and more in the literature, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and non-alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver, which has, there's a high risk of cancer, or there's an increased risk of cancer with that. And a lot of that is because the liver is overloaded with toxins from things like grains, sugars, eating more sugar. The liver has to deal with that. So tamarind improves liver function, and when I see that, I think of this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Cholesterol metabolism, remember, having an abnormal cholesterol numbers is a marker of inflammation rather than you eating too much fat. So, and also this, again, to take you back to the website, for those that have signed up for a subscription, thank you very much for that. There's a whole module on fats. And in the fats module, I actually break down the cholesterol numbers. So if you've had your cholesterol done by your GP, you can look and see what they really mean, rather than your LDL's high, I'm going to put you on statins. So the good thing about tamarind is it does help in that process. Obviously, you can't just eat tamarind, but it is part of your healthy diet. So the pulp in rodent studies, so mice, hamsters, rats, showed again that it was protective for the liver. It had anti-obesity effects. It reduced the so-called bad cholesterol and the triglyceride and increased the so-called good cholesterol. It had an anti-inflammatory effect, and it also reduced food consumption. So it enabled the rodents to feel full, to be satiated. So do ask questions if you have any as we're going along, and I'll stop and answer them. Right, so this is where fluoride comes in. So as I'm looking at for tamarind, I find about fluoride, this curious paper, Indian paper, that looks at the effects of tamarind ingestion on fluoride excretion in humans. Now, what is that about? So let's have a look. In their paper, this is what they say: hydrofluorosis, so fluorosis, or you'll get an idea of what that is a major public health problem in 17 out of the 32 states of India. Around 62 million people, including 6 million children, suffer from fluorosis due to excess consumption of fluoride in the water. So that's fluorosis, is excess fluoride in your system. Let's have a look what they do. So in this study in India, they take 18 boys who have fluorosis and 18 that don't, and they give them all 10 grams of tamarind paste, or control or nothing, for 18 days. Just 18 days. And the boys that were having the tamarind paste had a significantly increased fluoride excretion. So they were able to get rid of their fluoride. Now, the importance of this is that it's really difficult to get rid of fluoride that's built up in your body. And the traditional sort of chelation ways is to use something like aluminium, which great. It pushes out. I guess it competes for the fluoride, but it leaves you with aluminium. So to have something that gets rid of fluoride is massive. And of course, in India, particularly in the Punjab, there are areas with very high levels of fluoride in the water. So it is a big problem. But let's just go back to this study. They found that the urine was more alkaline, so it created an alkaline environment, and zinc excretion was less in the boys taking tamarind. So that means zinc is good for us. So almost every process in the body needs zinc. So, and I would say about 50% of people are low in zinc, are deficient in zinc. So the tamarind pushing up the zinc levels is it also a good thing. It's another secondary good point for tamarind in this paper. So you might say, well, that's India, and I don't live in India. But let's sort of bring it a bit closer to home with fluorosis. There's a toothpaste, there's a clue there with a toothpaste tube. The WHO in 2010 released this declaration stating the adverse effects of excess fluoride and highlighting that in addition to fluoride toothpastes and varnishes is, you can get your dentist to coat your teeth with fluoride to stop you getting dental caries. There can be high levels of fluoride present in drinking water and food. So the WHO have admitted that. So yeah, it's a natural thing. Let's carry on. The problem with fluoride is in food, certainly, is that it's not an essential nutrient, so it doesn't have to be on the label, on the food labeling. So you wouldn't know how much fluoride is in the food. Let's have a look. So this study, a paper done from Cardiff this year, it was actually, the paper was arguing that because of Brexit, we're going to be flooded with fluoride containing foods from America. So they had a look at certain foods and ascertained, which foods basically were more likely to have fluoride. This is one of their statements as well. It's well known that fluoride has a beneficial effect on the prevention of tooth decay. However, an adverse effect of prolonged exposure to excess fluoride is dental fluorosis. Dental fluorosis is the mottling of the teeth. The teeth look as if they're stained. And they say in the UK, the prevalence of any form of fluorosis has been recently estimated at 55% in fluoridated areas. 55%. Remember, they're looking at any form of fluorosis. And 27% in non-fluoridated areas in 11 to 13-year-olds. So if you get to the point where your teeth have got the mottling, then it suggests that the rest of your body has quite a lot of fluoride in it. And let's see, Public Health England, let's just go back. The story in the UK was that they had looked at different areas and found that in areas that had naturally high levels of fluoride, that there was less tooth decay. And so therefore they said, okay, this must be good for the teeth, or that's what they said. Let's put fluoride in water. The WHO kind of agreed and said that the target for fluoridation levels was between 0.5 and 1 milligrams per litre, or parts per million. And so just remember that we're going to remember that range. So the WHO said that's the target, and over 1.5 parts per million, you've got this increased risk of fluorosis. the Public Health England do their monitoring thing every now and again, and in 2018 they looked at fluoridation levels in different parts, and also then looked at tooth decay, etc. So this graph here is looking at fluoride concentrations in zones without fluoridation, and this may be small, but here, so you've got 0 there, 0.5 there, and 1 there. So this area, so WHO is saying that we need to be within here is the target area for tooth decay. So looking at the graph, it's these areas down here telling you where the normals lie. This is normal. And these are the, if you like, the standard deviations. And then these ones are kind of outliers. So whilst most of the people are down here below 0.3, there are people that are up to these levels in these zones that don't have fluoridation. So then if we look at the zones that do have fluoridation, you can see that they've got the levels up to the 1 figure. So the majority of people are just below that, and then with some over that. That's in the areas of fluoridation. So the Public Health England and the water fluoridation people think that's great because they are doing stuff for tooth decay. And they, in their monitoring, they looked at dental caries and found that, yes, dental caries was reduced in fluoridated areas, but there was also 10% of fluorosis in those areas. Their figures were 10%. The Cardiff figures, which are 2020, were 55%. And there was 2% of fluorosis in non-fluoridated areas. Now, they looked at hip fractures as well. So when you take in high amounts of fluoride and the body doesn't get rid of it, it gets deposited in your tissues, bone being one of them. And when it's deposited in bone, it can make the bone more dense. So you think your bone density scans, when you're getting older, you lose bone. And so you think, well, that would be a good thing. But some studies suggest that, yes, it gets deposited in bone, but the bone is still not good bone. And Public Health England actually see that in their figures. They looked at hip fracture rates and they found that they were increased in people who are over 80 years who are living in fluoridated areas. So it prevented dental caries in the youngsters, but increased fractures in those that are 80 years. No comment. What they didn't look at, Public Health England, they decided not to look at the effect on the thyroid, or the effect on the IQ, or the effect on all-cause mortality, or the effect on all types of fractures, or the effect on all types of cancers, because they said that they looked at the preliminary data and it wasn't worth looking at. So they didn't look at any of that. But other studies, and again, if you want to look at where I'm getting this information from, and you can just click on the PDF, you can click on the studies at the bottom. Someone's lost me there. Let's see. Try logging in and out of YouTube. Right, so hopefully everyone's still online or back online again. So what else happens with fluoride and fluorosis? As I said, it gets deposited in the tissues like the bones, aches you get aches and pains in the joints, abdominal issues, kidney, infertility issues. It gets deposited everywhere, and so therefore you're going to get issues in all the major areas. So that study in Cardiff, going back to that study where they looked at which foods had higher levels of fluoride, and they found that the chicken, we're always worried about the chlorine in chicken, but what about the fluoride in chicken? They found that pureed chicken had higher levels of fluoride. So you're thinking chicken nuggets, aren't you? Coming from America. But things like salted fish from Spain, Spain had quite, we're talking about Brexit, but Spain had quite a few foods, including the salted fish, that had higher levels of fluoride, higher than they should be. Other foods included pasta and grape juice. Now, as I said, you're not going to know because it's not on the labels. But Spain, the USA, and Brazil were the main countries with high levels. Now, one of the things about fluoride is that it displaces iodine and it competes at the thyroid receptor. So that's why you are at increased risk of thyroid disorders. And it also, thyroid, it affects the IQ. And one of the studies showed that children that are having more than 2 parts per million score worse on IQ tests than children ingesting less than 1 part per million. So it's not insignificant. It's not a nothing. We do have to think about whether we're introducing fluoride into our diet inadvertently, whether it be through food or water, or indeed toothpaste. So the American Association of Poison Control said that toothpaste was the main cause of fluoride toxicity. So remember, the WHO also admitted that toothpaste was a major problem. And they're saying mainly in children under 6. So there's a recommended amount that children should have based on their body weight. And that recommended amount is 0.05 to 0.1 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So it's different to the cutoffs that are in water, drinking water. This is per child now we're looking at. So for a child of 1 to 3 years who's say is 15 kilograms, that would be 1.5 milligrams of fluoride. For a child 4 to 8, average weight say 25, it's 2.5 milligrams of fluoride. And I'm going somewhere with this, so do stay with me. So I'll just repeat that again at the top there. 1.5 in the little e's and 2.5 in the 4 to 8 year olds. Now, if we look at toothpaste, a pea-sized amount of toothpaste, you will, by brushing your teeth and swallowing it, so toothpaste has, it comes in different strengths of fluoride. Most of the sort of ones that you're buying in the shops have around the 1450 parts per million or above, or around that level of fluoride in. So if you're putting a pea-sized amount of that fluoride on your toothpaste at one serving, you're going to get about 0.42 milligrams of fluoride. Now, if you're brushing your teeth twice a day, you're going to get twice the amount, 0.82. So if you're a kid, then you're getting pretty close to that if you're a 1 to 3 year old. Now, there is sort of toothpaste that has less fluoride in it, 400 parts per million, and you'll be getting much less fluoride with those toothpaste. Now, I I don't use fluoride toothpaste, but I had some of the small tiny ones that the dentists give you and stuff, which I sometimes just take on travel, and looked at the back to try and find out how much is in there, and it wasn't on there. Maybe because it's a small thing, maybe because they don't have to tell you. But when I looked online, most of the standard toothpaste are around that higher figure. So what does the NHS in England tell us to do? They say that toothpaste containing the higher amount, 1350 to 1500 parts per million, are the most effective. So the ones where you're getting this much, 0.82 for twice, brushing your teeth twice a day. So your dentist may advise you to use higher strength toothpaste. What's interesting is this is all for dental caries. Nothing, just dental caries. Let's put fluoride in the water just for tooth decay. We can't do anything else to combat this other than putting fluoride in the water. So let's have a look what they say. Children under 3 should brush twice daily and use 1,000 parts per million. Well, at least it's less than the higher one. But was anyone even aware of these guidelines? And children between 3 and 6 should brush at least twice daily with 1,000 parts per million. So in adults, sorry, lost that one. So adults, it said, should be using the higher toothpaste. So the point is that if your child is using an adult toothpaste with those higher levels, you could easily be getting to that 0.82 milligrams per day, which is approaching for the 1 to 3 year olds, it was 1.5 milligrams. That's just with toothpaste. Now, what happens then if you are living in an area with fluoride in the high fluoridation levels? Keep going too quickly. In an area where your fluoride levels are high in the water. So you've got toothpaste and then you've got water. And then the foods. So you've got 3 areas that you can be having access to fluoride: the water, the toothpaste, and the food. So you might say, oh well, the water, I'm close to 1, but that's okay. But then you're having fluoride toothpaste, then that might just push you over the recommended levels, and then you're eating foods that have got fluoride in, but you have no clue because it's not on the labels. And then there's one more thing, is other toxins. In the research papers, we often just focus on the single toxin. So they'll just focus on fluoride. But what about the overall toxic burden? Again, on the website, you'll see I have a toxic inflammatory burden survey. Now that's there because actually it's not about one toxin. It's about your overall burden of toxins. Because remember, the liver's got to deal, and the gallbladder and the gut have to deal with all of that. And it's the overall burden that the body struggles with. So the studies that I found looked at fluoride with alcohol and age. So that's probably because fluoride affects the liver. Alcohol affects the liver. And they're saying age as well had a worse effect on the gut and mitochondrial function. Fluoride together with arsenic, think rice, is the thing that first comes to mind, and aluminium. Again, on the website, I have a whole module on toxins and where they lurk in our food. So you can go have a look at that. Aluminium in pans, teeth, food. So we're getting all of these co-toxins. And in studies saying that they affected the brain in rodents. However, good news, ameliorated by vitamin C, D, E, calcium phosphate, and of course, tamarind. So So back to the reason I'm putting this this whole thing about fluoride was because actually making a bit of ketchup with tamarind in it may help us to get rid of the, if you like, the unseen, the unknown levels of fluoride. So you've got those boys, remember, they took 10 grams of tamarind paste. So it's probably 2 teaspoons of tamarind paste. I know that's quite a lot, but if you're having it on a regular basis, you're not using fluoride toothpaste, and your guts doing well and your liver, then you're likely to be excreting your toxins. So just a reminder about that. Right. So any questions? I've stunned you all into silence. Let's see. Yeah. Is anybody else having problems or questions? Let's go back to me there. Yeah. Any questions so far? I know you thought you were just going to watch me in the kitchen and making the ketchup, but this is so important because it's so simple. So simple, and it's something you can make without thinking, and at the same time you're helping yourself to detox. So let's carry on then with the ketchup. Add some kombucha, and I'm going to reduce that down a little bit. Put the heat up again for my sauce. So there we go. That's reduced down a little bit, and now it would be a good time to add some of the other ingredients like the palm oil. This is palm oil mixed with a bit of olive oil. I know I said don't cook in olive oil, but if you mix the two together, and it keeps the olive oil a bit more stable. So I've added that, or you can just add straightforward palm oil. And to give it a bit more of a red oomph, I'm going to put some tomato puree in there, and I'll put some ras el hanout in there, and a bit of sugar as well. So let's do that. So there we go. I've got the puree, the ras el hanout, the mixed spice, and some sugar. And so I'll let that cook in a little bit more, and then I'll whiz it all up together. It's still a bit watery, but that's fine because I need some water in there to whiz it up. Okay. There we go, that's everything combined, and that's probably enough for that. So I'll whiz that up in the blender, and we'll see what we get. What's that smelling like? It's smelling really good. It's smelling great. So if you want it really red, then you can add some paprika to it, or more puree. There we go. That's not too bad as red goes. But maybe I'll add some paprika to show you. So there, some paprika. Stick that in. Just give it a brighter red colour. And of course there are health benefits of paprika as well. It's not red for nothing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that cool down. I'll put it in a jar, let it cool down, and then add my ferment. So my ferment can be kombucha, it can be sake lees, it can be powders, really whatever you like. And there you've got your sauce, your ketchup, and of course you could add peppers to it, hot pepper, chili pepper, to spice it up a bit. You can add herbs, really just jazz it up in any way that you like. But I will show you that once it's cooled down. So this is the ketchup, and to get it fermenting, I'm going to use kombucha. Surprise, surprise. So here we go, a little slosh, and that's probably too much for my jar, but that doesn't matter. It just means it's going to ferment really quickly and taste vinegary very quickly. But there you go. And you can then, if you know that if you're a big family, you probably, you have that with your chips and your snacks and stuff. But of course you don't snack, but you have it with your chips and as a side. Of course I could add some of my hot from the cupboard. Let me get that. I could add some of my hot Scotch bonnet vinegar to that, and that would spice that up a bit quite nicely. But I'm going to put the lid on, and if you know that you eat it quickly, one lid. If you know that you're going to eat it quickly, then no problem, leave it out. But if you think you're on your own and you're not going to eat it very quickly, then put it in the fridge, and that will then ferment a lot slower. Great. Good. So, how was that? It can't be simpler. Please tell me that was simple for you to make. So basically onions, tomatoes, some tamarind, and palm oil. You're getting so much different good stuff in there. The palm oil, antioxidants in that. Again, on the fats module, there's a whole kind of video on palm oil. So you can go and have a look at why that is so amazing and wonderful on the website as well. Let me answer some questions. Where do I get tamarind paste? It's you usually find it in Asian shops. Regina, it's normally Asian shops. You can get the paste or the tamarind itself, because I didn't go into the seeds aspect of it, but you can roast those seeds rather than chuck them. Roast them and eat them. As I said on the presentation, they are amazingly powerful, health-giving parts of the tamarind plant. Do post any other questions that you have. I just want to talk a little bit about the tomato part of it, the fermented tomato. So we know that tomatoes good for us, don't we? Antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, lowers cholesterol, anything essentially that is anti-inflammatory or antioxidant. Remember, the free radicals is associated with inflammation, is going to have a positive effect on cholesterol, because cholesterol is a marker of inflammation. It's not a marker of you eating too much fat. And as I said, the fat module talks about all of that. So tomato is anti-cancer, and it has beta carotenes in it. Carotenes like carrots, the redness is a feature of beta carotene. But lycopene is a type of beta carotene which is especially abundant in tomatoes. But I have to say, there's more in red palm oil than there is in tomatoes and carrots, a lot more. But anyway, so it's got lycopene in it, so that's also good. It's an anti-cancer, it's an anti-inflammatory, it's it's an anti-nasty thing. What happens when you ferment it? And the interesting thing about many of the plant-based foods is that you have to process them to get the good stuff out. For example, with carrot, the carotene in the carrot is not readily available to the body. It needs to be shredded or cooked and served with oil for the body to absorb it. For the carotene in carrots, it needs to be processed. We're all into this raw stuff, but it actually needs to be processed and digested to break down the plant cell wall so that so it's available for our bodies. So it needs digestion and processing for the lycopene to be released. Surprise, surprise, yeast and lactic acid bacteria, the lab, allow release of that. So that that's your ferment, that's your kombucha, that's your sake lees, that's your kefir. It's this stuff breaks down that hard plant cell wall and allows your body to absorb the good stuff. And so I've just selected a few papers. This particular one, fermented. Lacto is lactic acid bacteria. Fermented tomato powder for ready to cook mincemeat products enrichment. So basically they've used the tomato powder, fermented tomato powder, to try and make a ready meal a bit more healthy. So basically the lactic acid bacteria was used to ferment the ready meal, and they found that the fermented tomato powder increased the beta carotene and the lycopene by 45%. Huge. Now there may have hardly been any in there anyway, but it did improve the status of that food. What else? Fermented tomato juice. What happens to it? This particular study, where they used the lactic acid bacteria called Acidophilus plantarum casei, and they fermented the tomato juice for 24 to 72 hours at 37 degrees C. That's hot. That's like, summertime in the Med temperature. And they found that the acidity increased. That's what I found with my ferment. It got a bit more acidic, and the sugars decreased. So that's an important part as well. So we're not feeding the bad microbes in our gut with the sugars in these foods, and the acidity serves to also kill off bad microbes. So that's a good point for fermented tomato juice. I made ketchup, but you can make tomato juice, right? If you like tomato juice, make tomato juice instead. Now, there's another study in Algeria which they talked you through how they made fermented tomato juice. And they went to the supermarket and bought supermarket tomatoes. This is all in the paper. They boiled the tomatoes, cleaned the jars, very clean jars, so more pickling type procedure. No salt, put a caps on, and let the tomatoes ferment at 25 degrees, a bit less than the other one, for 6 to 12 months they left it. That's a long time. That's Japanese style. And then they measured what was in it, and they found these things, bacteriocins. Bacteriocins were produced by the lactic acid bacteria, and they are basically like antibiotics, natural antibiotics. They have a broad spectrum. They kill off lots of different bugs, including fungi. So the tomato juice provoked the production of the lactic acid bacteria. They didn't add that. That's what was probably on the tomatoes, and then replicated and produced these sort of molecules which are effectively like antibiotics. Now, they basically suggest that the lactic acid bacteria that's produced is a biopreservative, because of a particular microbe called lactic acid brevis, which they noted killed off Salmonella, Staphylococcus, Pseudomonas. And they also comment that it also had antifungal activity. None of these are all bacteria. And they comment that mold, normally, even when you boil the liquid at 100 degrees C, a mold will not die. But the lactic acid brevis killed the molds as well. So it denatures, it breaks down the mold. And so they're saying that these lactic acid bacteria that formed in the tomato juice they're natural preservatives. Good. So in summary, fermented ketchup with tamarind is good for your health. And I'm not saying this, it's so similar to the one that you can buy. That it's tastier, I think, than the one that you buy out there. And it has lycopene and luteol in it, vitamins and minerals. Tamarind's going to help you detoxify from the fluoride, plus other things. And yeah, ferment your tomatoes because it's anti the bad bugs, even molds, which many people in my practice, many people have issues. When I measure during the toxins test, molds is one of the most common, mold toxins is one of the most common things that I find there, the sensitivity to them. Anyway, so good. Thank you. Let's go back to me. So any questions? What is lycopene? So lycopene is like beta carotene. It's a type of beta carotene, the thing that makes you vitamin A, makes you see in the dark. It's a similar molecule to that. What was put in the tomato juice? They didn't put anything in the tomato juice. It was a bit like pickling. They just left it to pickle, and whatever was left on the tomatoes after they boiled the tomatoes was the bacteria. The bacteria was hardy and it just replicated. It was a surprising paper. It's surprising what you find in these papers. So what do we think about that? Are we gonna have a go at fermenting? Is it at fermenting the tomato, making tomato ketchup? Do let me know. Are you going to have a try at that? And you can keep it, as I said, you keep it in the fridge if you're not going to use it all immediately. And as you can see from that paper, you can keep it a long time. It does get more and more tart, and if you're trying it with children, then the sort of vinegary taste may not be to their liking. But in the first week or so, then it's perfectly usable, and you can also then use that fermented tomato to cook something else. So I've done that same kind of sauce and used it to make a relish. So you can make a bean relish with that. If you have boiled up beans, add it to the cold ferment with some capers. Then you have a relish that you can use as a side. Again, on the website, I have the bean relish, not quite made in the same way, but I do ferment it with kombucha at the end. So you can see on the recipes part of the website, you'll see that. If you're subscribed, you'll see that recipe. So the other thing is, if you like tomatoes, you add kombucha and make it into a drink instead. So it doesn't need to be just ketchup, but try and be creative and use it for other things. Any questions? So the slides will be under, when you go to my account, you should see the slides there. I know Regina had some issues, and I can help you out with that afterwards. But the slides will be there, and you should be able to watch the replay of this there as well. Under events under my accounts. Yeah, if you haven't explored the website, do. I'll be adding new modules, usually about once a month or so. And next week we have Dr. Stephen back again. It will be on a Monday evening. And he'll be going through his series on the heart. That's been amazing. And I'm lining up some other really interesting talks. I've got, you would have heard me talking about the patient journey, patient play on words there. And I've got my first candidate who's agreed for me to follow them on their journey back to wellness. So do look out for that one. They won't necessarily be every week, the webinars, but certainly next week we've got Dr. Stephen. So do tune in for that. Good. So any questions? I'll wait a few seconds because of the delay. If not, we're at the hour mark, so I hope you enjoyed that, and do enjoy making your ketchup. Okay, bye for now. That's it for now, everyone. Remember, change starts with you. Be well.